The G5 Hive. All G5 all the time.
Welcome to episode number 6 of the G5 Hive, where we aim to bring you all of the honey and goods on G5 college football. Justice, how's it going? You had a week away, and now you're here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Still trying to catch up from last week with all the stuff going on in college football and my fantasy teams and all that. I mean, last week kind of a whirlwind for me. Like I don't even participate in waivers and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a lost week for me. So just trying to catch up.
And I'm glad to have you back to help shoulder the load here. We got a jam-packed episode full of news and notes and waiver wire pickups for you guys to make here going into week 7 of the college fantasy football season. I want to start off the episode by bringing up a beat reporter from Troy football, Josh Boutwell, is battling cancer, and he's still coming to work, doing the grind, but it was very nice. John Summerall, the coach there at Troy, posted TrojansTogetherCollective.com. It's the collective that the university uses for their student athletes, and they will be donating money to Josh's medical funds. So if you happen to be listening and you want to donate to help Josh out in his battle with cancer, you can find that at TrojansTogetherCollective.com. All right. Now, Justice, we've got what the swarm needs to know, our news and notes. Last week, I was super excited to see how Arkansas State versus Troy would turn out. Troy's defense has been pretty good shutting down, Darren Granger and such. Well, you got Rayner, who's been lighting it up the last 2 weeks prior to this game. So I was very curious to see how that would look, and he looked like a true freshman, going 15 to 27 for 156 yards, a QBR of 24.2, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Also, he had been electric running the ball. He had 14 carries for 5 yards, no touchdowns. I know you said you were out all week, but did you get a chance to catch up on that or see anything regarding that game?
I didn't watch that game. To be honest with you, I spent most of my day watching Texas and Oklahoma. But I mean that's not shocking. Troy defenses for a G5 school is pretty stout. Them and JMU's stout as well. They can play with anybody. As far as
who was the Troy middle linebacker last year?
Carlton Marshall
just crushed it last year. I mean, they were good last year.
Yep. Marshall. He was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. He graduated. He didn't get drafted. I'm not sure if he made like a practice squad or if he's playing XFL, but he was a tackling machine for Troy in his time there. So yeah, that's who you're thinking about.
Yeah,
but they have some other defensive linemen. Javon Solomon and Richard Jr. are still there. They're both very solid defensive linemen.
Well, I liked when there's like good news, bad news. Justice, what are you? Do you want to hear the good news first or the bad news first?
I always rather hear the bad news first.
Me too. So let's get started.
Leave on a high note.
Yeah, so let's get started. Injuries. They're part of the game. You got gladiators out there battling each and every game, but we got Torrey Horton. He got sandwiched in the game. They didn't say what the injury was, but it seems like he's likely to play this weekend. But something, with injury reporting, it's not like you're going to get clear answers. They've got Boise State this week, so I imagine like he'll try his best to play. Then we've got Ismail Mahad his wrist was heavily wrapped in the tunnel during the second half of that game for Texas State. So that's something to watch. And then, gosh, I just asked you about this, Justice.
Casper Rutkowicz.
Wide receiver out of NIU, had a knee injury. And then Jalen Buckley did not play for Western Michigan against Mississippi State, which was kind of shocking because I wasn't aware that he had an issue or was hurt.
No, it wasn't reported till like after the game started, and so I started him in a few leagues, and people were like, "Oh, they're playing Mississippi State." Well, I had bye week issues, and I needed to start him.
Last week.
Fortunately for me, fortunately it didn't hurt me in the leagues I needed them. But
I don't know if there's still for fantasy football a lot of bye weeks this week. I know the last 2 weeks have been pretty heavy bye week.
Week 6 I think was the killer week, at least for me it seems.
Then we've got Harrison Whaley, who has been looking great since he's come back. He got hurt versus Wyoming, or a leg injury. State. Yeah.
They
Fresno State, but didn't look to be season, or they're saying that it's not season ending. But
yeah, that's what head coach Craig Bowl said today. My expectation, if I own him, I'm sitting him because they play this week. I'm not sure who they play, but then they have a bye week. So it would kind of make sense to me that they might rest him this week, since the bye is coming up. So, if I have other options, I'm not starting him this week.
And then we have Gage Larvadane still sitting out with an upper body injury. I haven't heard anything about this yet. But yeah, this is 2 weeks in a row, I believe, that
it's multiple weeks. I think it's like 3.
3?
Yeah, I mean, what I kind of read is kind of like it's going to be a pain tolerance thing for him, I think. So it's hopefully, with the rest, it's going to get better, and he'll be back out there soon. I got him in a few leagues off waivers, and so he's just sitting there on my bench waiting.
Wyoming plays Air Force this next week, so that'll be a fun game to watch. Bowl eligible. Whoever wins this game, we got 5-1 Wyoming versus 5-0 Air Force, and Air Force has looked pretty good this year.
Yes, they have.
All right, tight end Cade Conley. He did not play on Saturday for Marshall. He'll be one of the names that we talk about in our waiver section, but it's something
I couldn't find anything why.
Out. Yeah,
there's no reports, nothing on why he didn't play Saturday.
And then there's also reports that Tyron Smith may sit out the rest of the season to preserve the year of eligibility. So something again.
He hit a 4-game limit, and I think he got hurt, and so there's talk that he may just sit the rest of the. It was him and a defensive player that said they may sit out the rest of the year to preserve that year of eligibility.
And then the good news: Frank Harris made his return. Comes back for UTSA. He goes 25 of 33 for 338 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 5 carries for 8 yards, and another touchdown. Welcome back, Frank. Much needed. I mean, UTSA has not looked like years past, but this was a big uplifting for that team there this week.
Hopefully they get DeCorian Clark back soon, too.
Yeah, there was talks that he might be back this last week. I didn't see him out there. I didn't see any snaps for him. Yeah, but we'll see if this week he's able to make it out there. Then our G5 over P5. Unfortunately, no G5s were able to make it. The closest we got was Marshall. I honestly thought they were going to get blown out. I know Marshall's good, but going to NC State and playing in that environment is hard. NC State's defense is pretty good. I know they're starting MJ Morris. So that played in, but 41-48, and they were in it there to the end. So tough loss there for Marshall. And then honestly, I thought Western Michigan was going to get blown out by more than 28-41 against Mississippi State. I I think it says more about Mississippi State than it does Western Michigan. But 28-41 there for the Broncos.
I had picked up Mississippi State defense in a couple of leagues, and I was very disappointed in that performance.
So our top 25 appearances, we don't have any. Fresno State lost to Wyoming and falls out of the top 25. Honestly, though, Wyoming has looked great. They put up a hell of a fight against Texas.
Yeah, I mean they have a great defense. They're always great running the ball. So yeah, it's a good recipe for winning or to win games.
And Air Force has been great. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them happened to pop into that like 22 to 25 range here, especially with this big game here this weekend. Our players of the week, I went ahead and took Malachi Corley. He had 8 receptions on 12 targets for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns. In full point PPR leagues, that was 46.8. And, in the NFL, when you're playing, you get that Thursday game and you see that dud and you have to just look at that score like for days. Well, you got to look at Malachi Corley's 46.8 points for a couple days before Saturday games kicked off. So that was great to see. And when he just truck sticked that guy there and ran it for that 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was, 75 yards.
Yeah,
that was great.
He's the Yak King. That's what he is, right? I mean,
Justice, who's your player of the week?
So my player of the week was running back Antonio Brown for Northern Illinois. He ended up with 280 yards, 4 touchdowns, an average of 21.5 yards per carry. He had a monster week for Northern Illinois, and he hardly played in the second half. Can you imagine if he played the whole game, what he would have put up? But, yeah, I mean, in one of my leagues with the scoring, he scored almost 70 points. So,
man,
he helped me out in a few leagues where I own him, and I started Jalen Buckley. Helped me out with that 0 there. So, yeah, huge week for Antonio Brown. One thing I was going to mention when you were talking about Corley, I think now every single player in our intro, with the exception of Javon Harvey, has been one of our players of the week.
And I don't know if Harvey's going to make it this year.
And we talked about him one game, the one game where he had like 3 catches for 190 yards or something. But I believe that was the week that Larverdane kind of went ballistic, and we went Larverdane over Harvey. So hopefully he'll get back. Not sure what his injury is, but hopefully he'll get back and he'll put up a game, and we can get all of our players here on the intro into the player of the week category.
You'd love to see it. So Harvey, I know you're watching. We need you to turn it on the rest of the year. All right, Justice, you want to take it away with our quarterbacks?
Yeah, so now we're going to switch over to our the nectar here for you guys, the top G5 producers at quarterback. This week we have 15. We also had 15 last week. Luke was flying solo, but we only have one new guy this week, and that's Frank Harris. So if you're new to the show, these we call these our 2020 guys. So these are guys that are top 20 in attempts and top 20 in yards per game for the G5. Once again, number 1 is Davis Brin. He's number 1 in attempts and number 1 in yards. Next up is EJ Warner from Temple, 45 attempts per game, just under 300 yards a game. Then we have Austin Reed, Western Kentucky, 3rd in attempts, 9th in yards. I did watch some of the Western Kentucky game. And the offense is different. I'll just say that, which is not surprising. I think it should have been expected with the change in offensive coordinator, with the offensive coordinator coming from the Mike Leach tree. And that's a little more of a, I don't want to call it dink and dunk, but a short passing game, death by 1,000 cuts offense. And so, Reed's numbers from a yard standpoint, or an ADOT are down compared to years past, where the Kitley or Arbuckle offense would take a few more deep shots than the new offense does.
At this point, I'm going to go with the Arbuckle offense.
Absolutely, right? Yeah, Kitley hasn't done much at Texas Tech in terms of slinging it around. Next up, Braden Shager out of Hawaii. 4th in attempts, 8th in yards. And then Braden Fowler Nicolosi, Colorado State, 5th in attempts, 2nd in yards. Jacob Zeno, next up. He continues to, UAB continues to throw it around. And they do a pretty good job of spreading the ball around too. But Zeno, if he's available in your leagues, he's 6th.
I watched
4th in yards.
I watched some of that game, and that was the longest game I've ever watched in my entire life. Like, it just kept going and going. There's so much. I don't remember how many yards were in that game. There had to have been 800 yards of total offense, and the clock was just stopped so many times because they're just throwing it about all the time. And Byron Brown had I think it was 21 fantasy points, and there was 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. So he ended up with 46 in a 6-point passing touchdown league, but I was just I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in that. I was like, man, 21 points with a couple minutes into this. And I mean, Jermaine Brown Jr. had himself a day. One of
yes, he did. Yes, he did
for player of the week. But yeah, they are tossing it all over.
And like I said, spreading it around a lot. So, yeah. Next up, Mikey Keene, Fresno State. 38 attempts a game, 282 yards a game, good for 7th in both categories. Nicholas Vattiato, Middle Tennessee State, 38 attempts, 261 yards per game. And next up is the new guy this week, Frank Harris, finally makes his debut on our 2020 list out of UTSA, and he ranks in 10th in attempts and 14th in yards. Seth Hennigan, Memphis, 11th in attempts, 10th in yards. JT Daniels out of Rice, 34 attempts a game, 303 yards, good for 3rd in yards per game. And then the aforementioned Byron Brown, South Florida, 34 attempts a game, 247 yards per game. And then plus he gives you quite a few yards on the ground as well. And then we got Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina, 33.6 attempts, 260 yards per game. Joey Aguilar, App State, 32.6 attempts, 243.8 yards. And our last guy in the 2020 bucket, who's 19th in both categories, attempts and yards per game, is Mr. Preston Stone from SMU with 32 attempts per game and 237.2 yards per game. So now I'll kick it over to Luke to go over our running backs.
All right. Running back wise, we had 11 last week. We add one more, 12 this week. However, we have 2 new people. So, number 1, Nate Noel, App State. Number 1 in touches, number 5 in total yards. Marcus Carroll out of Georgia State, number 2 in touches, 7th in total yards. Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, 3rd in touches, 1st in total yards. Rasheen Ali, Marshall, 4th in total touches, 10th in total yards. Kami Vidal, boy, he had a big week. He was also in my consideration.
Yes, he did.
I went against him in about 3 different leagues, and it was not an enjoyable experience this week. but he is he is fifth in touches and second in total yards. Blake Watson, I have him in several places, but the bye week did not help me this week. But he is still sixth in total touches, sixth in total yards. Kyron Lynch Adams out of UMass, seventh in total touches, 15th in total yards. Jalen Buckley missed this week, but he is still eighth in touches and 11th in total yards.
Hopefully, they're just saving him up from action, right? That's my hope anyway.
Maybe he was just a little bit dinged up, and coaches kind of knew, like, hey, going up against Mississippi State, maybe not the time to use him. Harrison Whaley, ninth in total touches, fourth in total yards, and then new to the list this week. It's been on there before, but Larry McCammon, the third FAU, 10th in total touches, eighth in total yards. So he's averaging 19 touches a game and 120 and a half total yards per game. Malik Jackson, Jacksonville State, 12th in touches and 19th in total yards, and then new to the list, probably because of the huge game he just had, Ontario Brown, NIU, averaging 16.2 total touches, which is 17th, and 105.3 total yards, which ranks 16th. Justice, on to you for some wide receivers.
So wide receivers this week, we had 11 last week. We only have 10 this week. There is one new guy, but he's not really a new guy. He just dropped off for last week because he got shut out. But he came back with a vengeance this week, and he jumped back on to the list. So we'll get things started with the top G5 guy in terms of targets, and that is LeJontay Wester out of Florida Atlantic, 14 targets a game with 99.2 yards per game. It's glad to see him remain there with the quarterback change, with Casey Thompson being injured and Daniel Richardson taking over. Much to my surprise, maybe, I guess not last week, week before last, in one of my C2C leagues, he was available on waivers, and I snatched him up. So, help me for that championship run. Next, Luke's Player of the Week, Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. 11.6 targets per game for 107.6 yards per game. Third on our list is Torrey Horton, Colorado State. Stay tuned to see if he's going to be able to go this week after the injury he suffered this past week. He's averaging 11.4 targets and 112 yards per game. Caleb Hood, Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern throws it around a lot. You got Hood, Burgess, Quealy, and the tight ends all get involved as well. But Caleb Hood, 10.8 targets per game, 84.4 yards per game. And obviously, got Davis Brent, our number one guy in both categories. The new guy on the list, in terms of he wasn't on the list last week, and that's Terrell Vaughn, Utah State, averaging 10.3 targets per game, 81.7 yards per game. And that's after putting up a 0 spot the week before last.
I have not got a chance to watch any Utah State football, but I'm thinking about betting on Utah State second halves, because it seems like they get just shut out in the first half, and it's just fireworks in the second half. So whatever the over is for Utah State in the second half, if they could put that together for a full game, look out.
The interesting thing with Utah State this week is every single one of their receivers that caught a pass went for over 100 yards. Now, that was only 3 guys: Terrell Vaughn, Jalen Royals, and Micah Davis. But, yeah. And Cooper Lagasse started because McKay Hillstead was still recovering from his injury. So we'll see if Lagasse is going to continue, or they're going to put Hillstead back in there once he gets healthy. Next on this list is someone that I am still shocked. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but he's still available in so many leagues, and there's absolutely no reason he should be. And that's Eric McAllister at Boise State, 9.3 targets per game, averaging 99.3 yards per game. Next up, Sam Pinckney out of Coastal Carolina, 9.2 targets, 88.6 yards per game. And then our number one yards guy, Colin Lacey out of South Alabama, 9 targets a game, but 120.5 yards per game. Next up, Eric Brooks. He's kind of slipped the last few weeks. He was near the top of the list. He's kind of fallen more towards the bottom of the list here, but he's still in our top 20 in both categories with 8.8 targets per game, 82.3 yards per game. And the last wide receiver in the 2020 guy is Luke McCaffrey out of Rice, averaging 8.8 targets per game and 85.7 yards per game.
I have a feeling this might be the last week for Eric Brooks in our 2020 if we keep getting these weeks.
Jalen Moss is kind of coming on strong for them as another guy and taking some of the shine off of Brooks. Now on to Luke, talk about the tight ends.
All right, so we're going to keep on with this mashup here of tight ends from our 2020 bucket of just the tight ends themselves. We only have Dallin Holker out of Colorado State, average being in like the wide receivers 2020 buckets.
Yeah.
So we're also going to add the ADOT and points per game. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that we have asterisks, and those are available probably in your leagues that are rostered in under 30% of leagues. So I'll kind of talk about these tight ends that are probably on your waivers, rostered in 30% or less in leagues, as well as our top guys, because why not grab the guys who are actually top 20 in their position in regards of getting targets and getting yards, and they're free. So Dallin Holker, Colorado State, 8.8 targets per game, 82.2 yards per game, and ADOT of 8.6, averaging 19.84 points per game, and rostered in 83% of leagues. Tanner Kozel, Ball State, he has 6.5 targets per game, 35.3 yards per game, and ADOT of 7.1, getting you 9.62 points per game, rostered in 39% of leagues. Justin Jolly, or Joel.
Jolly, yeah, you're right. He had a big week this past week.
UConn, 5.7 targets per game, 48.5 yards per game, and ADOT of 8.4. You'd like to see that. 9.75 points per game, rostered in just 3% of leagues. So he is probably out there on your waivers. Then we've got David Martin Robinson, also had a good game this last week for Temple.
2 huge weeks in a row.
Yep. So he was one of those guys that, at least he was on my radar as a guy to potential grab in the last supplementals. I happen to not, but the tight ends are just such a wasteland this year. It's pretty much if you don't have Dallin Holker or Brock Bowers now, since Gadsden got hurt. No one's really doing much. But yeah, David Martin Robinson was from Temple on the radar, 5.3 targets per game, 47.3 yards per game, 8.8 ADOT, averaging 10.97 points per game, rostered in just 21% of leagues. Then Cade Conley, we talked about him missing this last week, but he's averaging 5.3 targets per game, 41.75 yards per game, 4.3 ADOT. So out of all the guys on our list, he has got the lowest ADOT, but he is averaging the third most points for tight ends at 10.17 points, rostered in just 11% of leagues. Then we had a big game here. So I want to talk about it, because you can't always say, oh, well, if you take away this game, then they would be here. I mean, you get points for the game. Austin Hentz had a big game for Western Michigan, but he has been pretty quiet all season. So I do want to kind of preface that. But he's got 4.8 targets per game, 30.3 yards per game, and ADOT of 5.7, getting you 8.37 points per game, rostered in just 1% of leagues. Jay McAfee, Georgia Southern, 4.8 targets per game, 26.25 yards per game, 6.78 7.88 points per game, rostered in only 13% of leagues. Then we have RJ Maryland. I mean, would you say he's kind of been a dud this year for expectations? I mean,
I think
SMU is.
considering what his expectations were, yes. But he's been serviceable. I mean, I think where you drafted him, you're probably disappointed, but I mean, he's been serviceable.
And SMU's kind of been a little down this year. I kind of expected a little bit more.
I think two things. I think it's twofold. Number one, I think the SMU defense is better. And so because of that, they're not having to sling the ball around to win the games. I think that's a big part of it. And their running game's been decent as well. But I think the defense being so much improved, I think that's a big part of why the SMU numbers are down compared to previous years.
But yeah, he's averaging 4.6 targets per game, 31 yards per game, and 8 out of 9.4, getting you 8.5 points per game. And he's rostered at 56% of leagues, so probably not out there on your roster or on your waivers, but there's still like 44, do quick math, percent of waivers that he's out there. So go worth a check. Mark Redmond, SDSU, 4.5 targets per game. Then we've got 40 yards per game and 8 out of 9.7, which is actually the highest of all the tight ends here, getting you 9.25 points per game and rostered in 47% of leagues. So also go check, make sure he's not rostered in one of your leagues, because those are, like I said, tight ends are hard to find. He's producing. Dominique Mazzotti. I watched a little bit of this game. San Jose State. He was targeted quite a bit in this game and did pretty well. He had 5 targets, 3 receptions against Boise State. He only had 5.5 points, but when he got it, he had a little bit of wiggle to him. 25 yards, but overall 4.4 targets per game, 35.6 yards per game, 8.5 ADOT. Averaging 7.76 points per game, only rostered in 9% of leagues.
Was Sam Olsen still out? Did he play, or I think he's still out, but
I think I don't remember seeing him. I didn't watch a lot of the game, but once I saw that Boise State was down like 17-0, I was like, whoa, because I think the stat is like Boise State has beat them the last like 9 home football games or something like that. Like, just San Jose State just doesn't usually beat them, and I saw that and I had to check it out. Our main guy Ashton had 2 fumbles that resulted in touchdowns, I think it was, or at least points. So that was disheartening, but turned it on there late in the game. Harold Fannin Jr., Bowling Green State, 4.3 targets per game, 40.75 yards per game, 6.9 ADOT, averaging 8.85 points per game, rostered in 22%. He would be low on my waivers of priority. He pretty much had one big game that's kind of bolstering everything. He's kind of getting like 2 receptions a game. So, I mean, if you're desperate, he's a body, but just
he's back, and he missed a couple games too from injury, but he was back this week, so maybe he'll start. Maybe he'll get it going here in the second half of the season.
Then we've got Bowden Groen out of Rice, averaging 4.2 targets per game, 31.5 yards per game, and 8 out of 6.9, getting you 6.15 points per game. He's only rostered in 1% of leagues. His targets the last 2 games are 6 and 7, getting you 23 and 49 yards per game in those last 2. So not too bad. The games before that are kind of forgettable. So, hey, the NBA Jam rules heating up. So one more and he's on fire. And then the last name I want to put on here is Trayton Welch out of Wyoming. So at the beginning of the year, there was 2 Wyoming tight ends that were used quite often. I can't remember the other guy's name.
John Michael Gillenborg, I think.
Gillenborg. So he's averaging 3.7 targets per game, 25.3 yards per game, and 8 out of 8, which is, you like to see that. 6.2 points per game average, and then rostered in 5% of leagues. So this last week against Fresno, he had 6 targets, 6 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Granted, it's his only touchdown of the year, but that's good for 19.4 points in 1 point PPR leagues. So before that, he had 1.3, 5.2, 0, 5.2, and then the 19.4. So again, probably not counting on a big game, but it's possible, and they'll probably have to sling it against Air Force. So those are.
Go ahead.
I was like, those are my tight ends of our top 20 in targets and yards per game, and then all of our waivers kind of put in there in one's fail swoop, I guess.
One guy I think to add, and he doesn't show up in our list because PFF counts him as a receiver.
Correct. Yep.
But he's a tight end in most Fantrax leagues, and that's Holden Willis out of Middle Tennessee State.
Middle Tennessee.
He's averaging over 7 targets a game. I'd say probably close, just looking at his numbers. Well, the last 3 games. Last 3 games, he's a little over 7 targets a game, probably around 80 yards a game. And he's averaging probably close to 14 or 15 points per game. His target numbers the last 3 weeks are 10, 7, and 7. His yards are 118, 70, and 97. So yeah, if he's available in your league, he's only rostered in 19%. So yeah, he's definitely someone. If he's available in your leagues and I need a tight end, he's probably my number one waiver wire ad. Maybe I'd take David Martin Robinson over him, but of our guys, 30%, Willis would probably be a priority, I think.
And it's like, let's see here, tight end wise, and like you said, it's not a lot of names are out there or healthy, and they're quarterbacks in our top 20 bucket. So he's throwing the ball around and using him as one of the main targets. Not main targets, but like tertiary target.
Yep, that's a good segue to our top waiver wire quarterbacks. I'm not going to spend too much time. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, you see I put a 2020 next to guys that are in our 2020 bucket. I'm not going to go over those guys again. But all these guys are rostered less than 30% of your leagues. That's Zeno, EJ Warner, Cole Snyder, Nicholas Fatiato, Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, Joey Aguilar, and JT Daniels. All of them are less than 30% owned in leagues. But we'll talk about the 5 gentlemen here that aren't in our 2020 bucket, but are also less than 30% rostered. Gunnar Watson out of Troy. He's been on and off our 2020 list. He's only rostered in 3% of leagues. He's averaging 22.28 points per game in a 6-point passing touchdown league. He is at 31.2 attempts and 254.5 yards per game. And then we'll move down to Jordan McLeod, James Madison. He's only rostered 9% of leagues. He's averaging 28.95 points per game. And he's getting it done through the air and on the ground. That's a common theme with some of these guys here that aren't in our 2020 bucket. They're producing both through the air and with their legs. Next is Chandler Rogers out of North Texas. Coming on strong here now that he is the starter. He's only rostered in 20% of leagues. He's averaging 26.38 points per game, 26.2 attempts, and 223 yards. Next up, Diego Pavia out of New Mexico State. Again, like McLeod, he's doing it on the ground and through the air. only rostered in 20% of leagues, averaging 27.28 points per game. And the last guy on our list is Zion Chris, Louisiana Lafayette. I almost wonder if Wooldridge is going to get the job back when he gets back healthy. But Chris is, as these other guys I've mentioned, he's doing it in the air and on the ground with his legs. He's averaging 27 points per game, only rostered in 14% of leagues. He is a freshman. He's averaging 22.75 attempts per game and 200 yards per game. All these guys, if you're you need a quarterback, any of these guys can produce well for you. I'd say probably Zeno would be my number one target. Follow me, and then I think it really depends on your scoring for your league. If it's a 4-point passing touchdown league, I'm probably going to lean more like to McLeod, and Chris, guys that get me some yards on the ground as well. But obviously, a 6-point passing touchdown league, it kind of evens things out a little more. And some of these guys that are more passers, going to do just as well, if not better, than the guys that have the rushing ability.
I do want to mention JT Daniels for Rice and Zion Chris for Louisiana Lafayette are on bias this week. So if you are looking for somebody that you need this week, obviously stay away from them because they're not going to help you this week. But if you need hey, I'll wait and see, or hey, I need something for later, definitely guys to add.
All right. On to Luke with our waiver wire running backs.
All right. Last week was tough. It's still tough, but there's some good names out there. So Dean Connors, Rice, 6% owned, averaging 15.1 points per game, getting you 10.8 total touches and averaging 81 total yards. It sickens me. Justice, we did our CFF list draft. I picked Dean Connors. Here are his fantasy points: 20, 14.3, 28, 3.3, and 20. Can you guess the week that I picked him?
3.3.
The 3.3 week. He only averages, I don't want to say averages. He's right around 6 touches or rushes a game. He's used as a receiver. And so if you can pick him in games that they're going to be down, here are his targets: 7, 1, 11, 3, and 7. The 1 was Texas Southern, and then the 3 was against ECU. So against Houston, USF, and UConn, threw the ball a lot to him. So if you can get 20 points out of a 16, 15, 16, 20 points out of a running back off of waivers, it's there, but you're going to want to make sure they're losing and have to throw the ball. Anthony Watkins, Tulsa, 3% owned, 8.85 points per game. That's kind of weighted down by the first few weeks of the season. He's their guy. 16.2 total touches and 63.5 total yards per game. Quentin Cooley, Liberty, he's doing great there for Liberty, and we've talked before. The Liberty schedule is not all that tough. 6% owned, 10.08 points per game, 14.4 total touches, and 88.8 yards per game. Then we've got Rajay Harris, East Carolina, rostered in just 10% of leagues. 11.38 points per game, 12 touches per game, and 47.6 total yards per game. Lorenzo Lingard, where did he? Was he Florida, then Miami, or Miami, then Florida? I think it was Miami, then Florida.
Miami, then Florida, then Akron.
So he's a 5-star, if I remember correctly, back in the day.
4-star at least, yeah.
Yeah. And he seems to be the guy there, because I'm trying to remember the other guy that they brought in from, I think he went Arizona to Northwestern, or Northwestern to Arizona, and then to Akron, but he's only rostered in 18% of leagues, getting you 12.3 points per game, averaging 11.7 total touches and 79.7 total yards.
Speaking of Akron, they lost DJ Irons for the season, so maybe they're going to rely more on Lingard. Taj Bullock, it looks like he's taking over for DJ Irons at quarterback.
Jaden Thomas, UNLV, rostering at 18% of leagues, getting you 15.5 points per game, averaging 10.8 total touches and 81 total yards. Here are his last 3 games from attempts: 13, 13, and 12. And he's got 50, 162. Kind of booing that number. He had a 4 touchdown game in there in that 100-yard game. So, but again, he's able to get that. So opportunity, and you got to be out there on the field to get the touchdowns, and he's out there. So definitely someone to look at. Then you've got Keon Black, JMU. Then he's 11% rostered, 13.2 points per game, 17.4 total touches, and 94.4 total yards per game. JMU, they can run the ball pretty well.
They do spread it around, though. With
who do they have?
McLeod, and then Lawton, Tyson Lawton is the other.
They usually have like 2 or 3 running backs there that can tote the ball. I'm trying to remember who they had last year. That was pretty good.
Percy Ajayi Obasi.
Yeah. Yep. So he was pretty good for them. They can really run the ball there. Ron Cook, Buffalo. You know what just shocks me is Buffalo has not been good, and then the last 2 weeks they seem to figure something out.
Yeah, they hadn't won a game, but they won the last 2.
So Ron Cook makes our list, rostered in 7% of leagues, 14.65 points per game, 13.3 total touches, 62.8 total yards per game. Let me read this to you. So fantasy points, we like fantasy points. 3.2, 17.3, 24, 13.8, 19.1. Attempts, 11, 7, 11, 17, 11. He's getting you those attempts, and then he's got 4 touchdowns on the year, and he gets a few targets. So 1, 4, 3, 6, 1. So getting some targets as well. Ron Cook, somebody to take a look at. Jacoby Kadobi, UL Lafayette, again on a bye. He is a wide receiver running back hybrid on Fantrax, so you can use him in both spots. Rostered in 27% of leagues, 13.77 points per game, 9 total touches per game, getting you 82.7 points per game. Then we've got Trey Shelton, La Tech. This will probably be the last week we get to talk about him, but
he's another hybrid guy.
29% of leagues, 19.22 points per game, 15.25 total touches per game, averaging 109.75 yards per game. So, like you said, he was a hybrid, and again, his attempts: 5, 16, 16, 21 yards, 62, 152, 104, 118 fantasy points, 12.2, 23.7, 16.4, 24.6. He gets you a couple targets. 3 has been his highest for negative 2 yards. He's not out there running routes, just a dump off guy, but definitely available, and you need to pick him up. Another one is Terrion Stewart, Bowling Green State. 13% rostered, 11.55 points per game, getting you 11 touches and 73.8 points per game, or total yards. Sorry, that would be great if I could get 73.8 points per game off of waivers. Sorry, 73.8 total yards per game. As I get I'm kind of looking up stats as I go here. Because I didn't get a chance to write down as many as I wanted. But this is a name that I want to talk about because he's a freshman, true freshman. Mekhi Hughes, Tulane, 12% rostered, getting you 11.88 points per game, 14.8 total touches, and 75.8 total yards per game. So here's what his attempts look like: 8, 23, 14, 5, and 22 for 41 yards, 92 yards, 83 yards, 29 yards, 123. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year. He's not going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got 3 total receptions on the year. And in this last week here against UAB, he had 26 fantasy points, 22 attempts, 123 yards. As a freshman, if that's somebody you can get in Dynasty, that he might not hit every week for you, but again, running backs are hard to find, and I think he's going to be used there going forward. And they've shown confidence in him this year, so I think that is one of the guys that I would really like to pick up is Mekhi Hughes out of Tulane. Justice, bring us home with wide receivers.
All right. So I mentioned it when I talked about wide receivers for our 2020 guys. Eric McAllister, number one. Like the fact that he's still only rostered in 25% of leagues kind of just amazes me. He's averaging 18.93 points per game, 5 receptions per game on 9 targets and 99.3 yards per game. This next guy has come on strong these last 2 weeks. I fully expect that he won't be on this list next week, and that's Jalen Royals out of Utah State. 29% owned, averaging 21.03 points per game, a little over 5 catches on 7 targets, 86.8 yards per game. And kind of like these top 3 guys are, like, in my opinion, must adds. And the last of that group is Joey Hobart out of Texas State, rostered in 23% of leagues, averaging 18.7 points per game. He's got good hands, man, because he's averaging 7.5 targets and 6.3 receptions, 83.7 yards per game as well.
I want to challenge the people that are listening and watching. Let's not talk about Joey Hobart, Jalen Royals next week, and Eric McAllister. Let's just not talk about them next week.
I mean, I feel confident we won't be talking about Jalen Royals, but I'm still shocked that we're still talking about Eric McAllister.
Yeah, it's like I feel dirty talking about him because he's just producing, but it's like nobody's picking him up. Like we have to keep talking about him.
And I think it's because like he hasn't had like a monster game, like Jalen Royals has 2 weeks in a row, but he's steady, he's 5 catches for 99 yards a game. That's nothing to sneeze at. I think sometimes people get too enamored with the guy that has the blow up week, and sometimes ignore some of these guys that are steady producers. Next up, Lawrence Keys III out of Tulane, rostered in 16% of leagues, averaging 17.28 points per game. Next guy is kind of a boomer bust guy. We've talked about him before. He is the passing offense for UL Monroe, and that's Tyrone Howe, averaging 16.9 points per game. Sean Atkins, South Florida. If you are in a PPR league, he is a PPR monster. He's averaging 8 targets, 6 receptions, only 70 yards per game, but he is their reception hog there down in South Florida. This next guy, new to the list, Jalen Moss. As we mentioned earlier, he's kind of taken some of that shine off of Eric Brooks out of Fresno State. He's only rostered 8% of leagues. He's averaging 15.83 points per game, 5.5 receptions on just under 7.5 targets, and 59.8 yards per game. But he's really come on strong these last few weeks. Rock Taylor out of Memphis, rostered in 7% of leagues, 15.82 points per game, 5.2 receptions on 7 targets, and just under 80 yards a game. This next guy is new to our waivers, and that's Elijah Metcalf out of Middle Tennessee State. He's only rostered in 2% of leagues. He's averaging 14 points per game, 5.3 targets or 5.3 receptions on 7.2 targets, and 59.3 yards per game. And like we mentioned, Holden Willis at tight end, Metcalf's quarterback is also on the 2020 list. We talk about Jacob Zeno, and if there is a wide receiver that's starting to stand out, in my opinion, that's Amari Thomas out of UAB. Only rostered in 7% of leagues, and I believe he is a freshman. I'm not sure if he's a true freshman or a redshirt, but I do believe he's a freshman.
I believe he is a true freshman, and he also led the team in receptions this last week. But they do throw it around to everybody. He led the team in receptions with 3
And then
for 50
even
and a touchdown.
Yeah, it seems like he's even though he's producing in his limited touches, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
11.73 points per game, 5.2 receptions on 6.4 targets for 57 yards a game. Another Texas State guy who's kind of been pretty steady throughout the season. Again, he's kind of doing it on limited touches, and that's Cole Wilson, Texas State, rostered in 3% of leagues, 14.3 points per game, 4.8 receptions a game on 5.8 targets, and 58.2 yards per game. And rounding us out, this guy should be a dynasty play. I will say it is a little concerning that in the second half that he isn't producing more with Torrey Horton out of the game. But that's Justice Ross Simmons out of Colorado State, owned in 18% of leagues, 11.22 points per game, 4 receptions on 6.6 targets, and 60.2 yards per game. And that's going to do it for our waiver wires this week. Again, McAllister, Royals, and Joey Hobart are the 3 primary targets for me in my leagues if they're available.
All right. As for G5 versus P5 this week, we do not have any games, but looking forward to next week. Justice, do you have any games that you are looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to Old Dominion can't lose this week. So that's 2 weeks in a row they haven't lost. They're on a bye this week, so they can't lose. And I'm a little excited for their actual next game. It got moved to the NFL Network on 2 weeks or 2 Saturdays from now. They play App State at home at 7 p.m. So that'll be the first time Old Dominion has ever been on the NFL Network. I'm hoping that they use this time to get their offense right. The defense is lights out. The defense didn't play too great the first 2 games, but since then the defense has been phenomenal, and the offense has just struggled. They pulled Jack Shields, put Grant Wilson back in. He won the game for him. I'm. This is just my gut feeling, and maybe it's wishful thinking, but I'm hoping that they'll take these next 2 weeks to prepare true freshman Colton Joseph to start against App State. I think we've seen that Shields and Wilson aren't going to take them where they need to be. And so I'm hoping with the 2 weeks here that they're going to use that time to get Mr. Joseph ready, and he'll start against App State. So I don't have any insider information. That's just wishful thinking on my part. And hopefully they can teach Kadarius Callaway how to pass block. I know a lot of people added him last week because he had the huge game, but I'm going to tell you, if he doesn't learn how to pass block, he's never going to be the guy. I watched the game this past week against Southern Miss, and I think my grandmother could do a better job pass blocking than he did. Like, he wasn't even a speed bump. Like, he just whiffed. He was like a turnstile. It was his pass blocking was atrocious. And
getting your quarterback hurt is also an easy way to find the bench.
So he's definitely the most talented running back with the ball in his hands, but man, if he doesn't improve pass blocking, he's never going to be the guy. And that's a shame because he is talented, but he's got to improve on that. So yeah,
So
I mean, other than that, what am I looking forward to? Gee, I don't know. I don't really have anything that kind of comes to the top of my head. Like you said, the Wyoming Fresno State game should be a good one, right?
Wyoming Air Force. So you've
I'm
got
sorry, Wyoming Air Force.
so
Wyoming
you
played
got
Fresno
five.
State last week. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got Air Force 5-0 versus Wyoming 5-1. Uh, Air Force is 3-0 in the conference. Wyoming's 2-0 in the conference. Uh, and then a game I'm looking forward to, other than that one, is Boise State at Colorado State, because one of those Wyoming Air Force teams going to lose. Boise State also 2-0 in conference. They can gain ground on a team here if they can win, be tied with Air Force or Wyoming. And then Colorado State is 0-1 in conference, 2-3 overall. Boise State 3-3 overall. So this is a chance for Boise State to go up a spot. But yeah, those two games, Boise State versus Colorado State and Wyoming at Air Force, two
The
games that I'm really excited to see.
the MAC game, Akron and Central Michigan. Interested to see what if Jace Bauer is going to start again. If we get definitive word that either Bauer or Emmanuel is going to be the starter this week against Akron, I think you got to start him, right, because Ontario Brown just lit them up on the ground. So
I would assume it's going to be I don't know what's going on with Burt, but yeah, I
I
mean,
assume it's
Central
going to be.
Michigan has looked broke the last couple weeks. So
Yeah. Another game, another Mountain West game, I think that should be a good one is Fresno State, Utah State, right? That's got potential shootout potential. It's a Friday night game. That's I think that's another one that could be a high scoring, exciting.
what are your
Game.
thoughts there? Because Fresno State, not too bad on defense. Do you think I fire up Terrell Vaughn? I mean, he's been lights
Oh,
out. I mean, other than
absolutely,
the one game.
absolutely. I think Terrell Vaughn's a must start. I think they've shown that you can't just take him out. They're going to throw it to Royals and Davis. So, yeah, Terrell Vaughn's a must start every week.
And then bet whatever the over is on the second half,
Right.
whatever that
Yeah.
number is.
Yeah. And then we got some Tuesday night football this week too with Coastal Carolina and App State.
That'll be a good. App State probably will roll, but something. Yeah, make sure you go set your lineup. If you got substitutions, get them set tonight or tomorrow morning.
And then we got some other Tuesday night games in Conference USA: Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee, and Liberty Jacksonville State. That Liberty Jacksonville State game is also another game where someone's going to become bowl eligible. Liberty's 5-0, Jacksonville State's 5-1. Yeah, I'm excited to watch Liberty again. They kind of put up a dud last week, I felt like, against Sam Houston. But I'm excited to see Caden Salter what he can do against that Jacksonville State defense. And then Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee. It's another game that could have some high scoring potential there. Both those teams like to throw it around. So some great matchups tomorrow night.
Also here, for the weekend, it'll be windy here in the Midwest, so might be some low-scoring games. If you got any MAC games here in the Midwest, the Illinois, it's not really the Midwest, but your Michigans and whatnot. So just something to be aware of. Well, that's going to do it for us.
One last game I was going to add. If you look at the American, their two top teams play each other Friday night. Tulane and Memphis.
That'll be a fun game. Tulane's line play is really, really good, and Memphis has just been up and down. They're just fun to watch. So you got a good defense going against a good offense. Something's got to give.
Yep.
That's going to do it for us tonight. Next week we'll bring you everything from the sweet nectar on the G5 from the week 7 games and bring you all the news for you, the swarm, that we can find concerning the G5. Thank you for your support. Please like, subscribe, retweet, leave a 5-star review. Justice and I are only 5 stars. We're not high 4 stars or 3 stars. We are 5 stars. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're available to you. Please go give us a 5-star review. We appreciate it. And thank you and good night.
See you next week.
See ya.